The cathedral bells tolled mournfully as the rain lashed the stone steps of St. Matthew's in Alexandria, Virginia. Savannah Brooks stood frozen on the slick granite, her black dress clinging to her like a second skin. Evelyn's hand a warm anchor in the storm. "You have some nerve showing up here with her." Marcus, her older brother, bellowed, his face twisted in fury under the black umbrella. Two security guards in dark suits seized their arms and shoved them backward down the steps. "This is a family funeral, not some liberal sideshow," he roared after them. The mourners inside the nave gasped audibly, their whispers slicing through the open doors like knives. Evelyn pulled Savannah close as they stumbled toward the waiting Mercedes, her voice low but steady. "It's okay, Save. We knew the risk." But Savannah's mind was already fracturing. This was not how today was supposed to unfold. Her mother Margaret had fought cancer for 18 months, and Savannah had promised herself she would honor her without shattering the fragile lie that had kept her career alive. Now the lie was in pieces on the wet pavement, and the entire Washington power circle would hear about it by morning. 3 years earlier, the Willard Intercontinental Ballroom had glittered with crystal chandeliers and the low hum of influence. Savannah, then 31 and freshly promoted to Chief of Staff for Senator Harlan Thompson of Virginia, had been working the room with practiced precision, shaking hands, trading favors, securing commitments for the next defense appropriations cycle. Evelyn Hart had approached from the bar, champagne flute in hand, her emerald green eyes locking onto Savannah's with an intensity that felt like recognition rather than introduction. "You look like someone who could use an honest conversation instead of another scripted pitch," Evelyn had said, her Chicago accent softening the edges of her words. They talked for 2 hours that night, about the failures of the last farm bill, the quiet corruption in procurement contracts, and the exhaustion of pretending to be someone else in rooms full of men who assumed they belonged. By the time they slipped out a side entrance and shared a cab to a discreet hotel in Foggy Bottom, the attraction had already ignited into something neither could name yet. Their first kiss happened in the elevator, tentative and electric, the kind of kiss that rewrites every future plan in a single heartbeat. From that night forward, their relationship existed in the shadows of the Capitol. Savannah's DuPont Circle apartment became their sanctuary on rare weekends when staffers were out of town. Evelyn's Georgetown townhouse served for quieter evenings when lobbyist dinners ran late. They never held hands in public, never posted photos, never used each other's names in texts that could be subpoenaed. Savannah had grown up in a strict conservative household where her father's construction empire depended on Republican donors, and her mother quoted scripture at every family dinner. Coming out would have meant losing the family name, the connections, the path to Congress that had been drilled into her since she was 12. Evelyn, raised by a single mother who worked double shifts, had learned early that a lesbian lobbyist on K Street would be frozen out of the big defense contracts. So they built their love like a classified briefing, need to know only, compartmentalized, lethal if leaked. The drive back from the funeral was silent except for the windshield wipers and the low hum of the radio playing classical music Savannah hated, but her mother had loved. Evelyn reached over and turned it off. "Talk to me," she said. Savannah's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "Marcus has the photos now. Someone inside will sell them to Politico by lunch tomorrow. My announcement for the 8th district seat is in 6 weeks. Thompson already warned me, one hint of personal scandal, and the donors vanish." Evelyn nodded slowly, her own career flashing before her eyes. Apex Defense Systems paid her 7 figures precisely, because she delivered votes without drama. A public lesbian affair with the chief of staff of a key senator would end that in a heartbeat. Yet as they pulled into the underground garage of Savannah's building, Evelyn leaned across the console and pressed her forehead to Savannah's. "Whatever happens, I'm not letting you face this alone." The words should have comforted. Instead they felt like the first crack in a dam already straining under pressure. That night they lay awake in the dark, the city lights painting stripes across the ceiling. Savannah's phone buzzed once, a text from her father. "Stay away from the will reading if you know what's good for you." She deleted it without replying. Evelyn's breathing eventually evened out beside her, but Savannah stared at the ceiling, replaying every stolen moment, every whispered promise, every time she had chosen ambition over honesty. The funeral expulsion had not just humiliated her. It had forced the question she had spent 3 years avoiding. How much longer could love survive in the same city as power? The next morning the phone rang at 7:42 a.m. Mr. Harrington, the family attorney, spoke with the calm precision of a man who had read 1,000 last wills. The reading is scheduled for 10 o'clock at the firm. Your mother left explicit instructions that you attend, Savannah. There is also a sealed letter addressed to you alone, to be opened in the presence of the entire family. Savannah hung up, heart hammering. Evelyn was already dressed in a charcoal pantsuit, ready to face whatever came next. I'm coming with you, she said simply. Savannah wanted to argue to protect her, but the words died in her throat. The lie had already been exposed. All that remained was to see how deep the damage ran. The Brooks family law office smelled of lemon polish and old money. Savannah walked in at 9:58 a.m. with Evelyn at her side, both of them carrying the invisible weight of yesterday's public disgrace. Marcus refused to look at them. Their father, Richard Brooks, sat ramrod straight at the head of the long mahogany table, his jaw set like concrete. The lawyer cleared his throat and began the formalities: property in Virginia, the trust funds, the sentimental jewelry. Then he lifted a cream-colored envelope bearing Margaret's elegant handwriting. This letter is to be read aloud by Savannah in the presence of all immediate family, he said. Savannah's hand shook as she broke the seal. My dearest Savannah, if you are reading this, I have finally slipped away from the pain. First, I want you to know that I knew about you and Evelyn the moment I saw you two together last Christmas. The way you looked at each other when you thought no one was watching. It reminded me of the love I once felt for your father before life hardened us both. I approved, my girl. Love like that is rare. And the world is cruel enough without family adding to the pain. Be happy. Be honest. That is my final wish. But there is more. Your father and Marcus have been paying bribes to Senator Thompson's office for the last 9 years to secure those no-bid construction contracts. The evidence, bank records, emails, wire transfers, is in safety deposit box 417 at First National, key taped under the false bottom of my jewelry box. If they try to destroy you for who you love, use it. Do not let them win. I love you more than I ever knew how to say, Mom. The silence that followed was absolute. Then Marcus's knees hit the carpet with a dull thud. Savannah, please. Don't. Tears streamed down his face. Their father slowly lowered himself to the floor beside him, head bowed. We'll lose everything. The company, the house, our name. Evelyn stood motionless at Savannah's shoulder, a quiet pillar. Savannah folded the letter, her voice steady for the first time since the funeral. You kicked me out of Mom's funeral because I dared to bring the woman I love. And now you expect mercy. The power shift in the room was palpable. For the first time in her life, Savannah Brooks held the lives of her family in her hands. By the time they left the office, the rain had stopped. Evelyn drove while Savannah stared out the window, the letter burning a hole in her briefcase. Back in DuPont Circle, the apartment felt different, smaller, more fragile. Savannah poured 2 glasses of bourbon and handed one to Evelyn. The scandal from yesterday is already trending. Chief of Staff escorted out of Mother's funeral with female companion. Thompson's office called me twice this morning. They want a statement denying everything. Evelyn took a slow sip. Then deny it. Save your career. We can go back to the way things were, quiet, safe. The words hung between them like smoke. Savannah set her glass down untouched. And what if I don't want safe anymore? That afternoon Savannah walked into Senator Thompson's private office on Capitol Hill. The senator, a silver-haired Virginian with a handshake like a vice, did not invite her to sit. The photos are everywhere, Savannah. Donors are calling. The party leadership wants to know if you're going to be a liability. Savannah met his eyes. It was a misunderstanding, sir. Evelyn Hart is a professional colleague who offered support during a difficult time. Nothing more. The lie tasted like ash. Thompson studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. Make sure it stays that way. The 8th district seat is yours if you keep your personal life personal. She left the office with her career intact but her soul feeling smaller. Evelyn was waiting in the car outside. Did you deny us? She asked quietly. Savannah could only nod. The drive home was silent again, but this time the silence felt like the beginning of a fracture that might never heal. The next 3 weeks became a masterclass in damage control. Savannah spent 14-hour days in the Hart Senate office building, drafting amendments, briefing Thompson on the massive National Defense Authorization Act, and smiling for cameras while her private life bled across every political blog in the city. Evelyn, meanwhile, was under pressure from Apex's CEO to deliver the $2.4 billion contract for the new hypersonic missile guidance system. The bill that would authorize it was scheduled for a vote in 6 weeks, and Thompson's committee held the deciding voice. "You're sleeping with the chief of staff," the CEO had told Evelyn bluntly in a closed-door meeting. "Use it." Evelyn had walked out without answering, but the threat lingered. One rainy Thursday night, Savannah came home to find Evelyn pacing the living room, phone still in hand. "They want me to leak your talking points on the missile amendment. If the language stays tough, the contract dies." Savannah felt the floor tilt. "And if you do it?" Evelyn stopped pacing. "I keep my job. You lose the support of every defense contractor in Virginia. Your congressional run ends before it starts." They stood 3 feet apart, the space between them suddenly wider than the Potomac. Savannah reached for Evelyn's hand, but Evelyn pulled away. "I won't be the reason you lose everything, Save. Maybe we should." She couldn't finish the sentence. Savannah finished it for her. "Maybe we should end this?" The words cracked in the air like breaking glass. That weekend they drove to a cabin in the Shenandoah Mountains under fake names, desperate for 48 hours without eyes on them. They cooked pasta, drank cheap wine, and for one night pretended the world outside did not exist. Lying in front of the fireplace, Evelyn traced the line of Savannah's jaw. "I love you enough to walk away if it saves you." Savannah kissed her palm. "I love you enough to burn it all down if it keeps you." Neither statement solved anything. They simply held each other tighter as the fire died to embers. Monday morning the fracture widened. A tabloid published a blurry photo from the funeral steps. Savannah and Evelyn's hands linked for one fatal second. Thompson summoned Savannah again. "One more incident and you're gone. I cannot afford this." Savannah nodded, then drove straight to Evelyn's office on K Street. She closed the door behind her. "I denied us again today. I'm starting to hate the sound of my own voice when I do it." Evelyn's eyes filled, then stopped denying. "Come out with me. We'll face it together." Savannah wanted to say yes. The word was on her tongue. Instead she whispered, "I can't. Not yet." When she left the office, Evelyn did not walk her to the elevator. The door closed between them with a soft click that sounded final. The National Defense Authorization Act markup session was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Savannah spent the weekend locked in her apartment, legal pads covered in notes, trying to find a way to thread the needle, support the bill enough to keep Thompson happy, weaken the missile language enough to protect Evelyn's contract without anyone noticing the conflict of interest. Evelyn, meanwhile, was summoned to Apex headquarters in Arlington. The CEO slid a folder across the table. Inside is every text, every hotel receipt, every coded email between you and Brooks for the last year. Deliver the amendment language we need or this folder goes to every news outlet in the city. Evelyn stared at the evidence of their love turned into blackmail. She took the folder, drove home, and waited for Savannah. When Savannah walked through the door that night, Evelyn was sitting on the couch with the folder open on her lap. "They have everything," she said quietly. Savannah sank into the opposite chair. For the first time in 3 years, they talked about the impossible choice without euphemisms. If Savannah killed the missile program, Evelyn lost her career and possibly faced legal scrutiny for the leaked documents. If Evelyn delivered the amendment, Savannah's political future would be tainted by accusations of favoritism. "We always knew one of us would have to choose," Evelyn said, voice breaking. Savannah reached across the coffee table and took her hand. "Then we choose each other." They made love that night for the first time in weeks, slow, desperate, as if memorizing every touch in case it was the last. The markup session the next day was brutal. Savannah sat at Thompson's right hand, passing notes, whispering strategy. When the missile amendment came up, she leaned in and recommended a compromise that weakened the language just enough to satisfy defense hawks, while still allowing Apex's contract to survive. Thompson accepted it. The room moved on. But Evelyn was watching from the gallery, her face pale. Later that night she confronted Savannah in the apartment. "You just saved my job by compromising your principles. How does that feel?" Savannah's answer was honest and devastating. Like I sold a piece of my soul to keep us both alive. The fight that followed was the worst they had ever had, accusations of weakness, of selfishness, of loving power more than each other. Evelyn stormed out at 2 a.m. Savannah sat on the floor until dawn, the letter from her mother clutched in her hands like a talisman. The media storm reached hurricane force the week before the full Senate vote. Someone, Marcus, Savannah suspected, had leaked the full funeral video to a conservative podcast. Overnight, Savannah became the poster child for Washington elites who can't even keep their personal lives together. Thompson called her into his office and closed the door. The leadership has decided. You're off the ticket for the 8th district. They're running a family values candidate instead. Savannah felt the floor drop away. 10 years of 18-hour days of swallowing her identity, of strategic silence. All of it erased in a single conversation. When she told Evelyn that night, the reaction was not what she expected. Evelyn pulled her close and whispered, "Then we start over. Together. No more hiding." For the first time since the funeral, Savannah felt something like hope. But hope is fragile in Washington. 2 days before the final vote, Evelyn received a new ultimatum from Apex. Kill the compromise language or the folder of evidence goes public. Evelyn sat in her office until midnight, staring at the amendment text Savannah had fought so hard to craft. Then she did the one thing she had sworn she would never do. She sent a single encrypted email to the committee staff, subtly strengthening the missile language back to its original form. The change was small enough that no one would notice, except Savannah. The next morning, when Savannah saw the final bill text, she knew instantly who had done it. Evelyn had chosen her career over their future. The confrontation in the apartment was quiet and devastating. "You betrayed me," Savannah said, voice flat. Evelyn stood by the window, shoulders shaking. "I betrayed the version of us that required you to destroy your life. I love you enough to let you hate me if it means you get to keep your dreams." Savannah packed a suitcase in silence. At the door she paused. "Mom's letter told me to choose love. I thought I was finally listening." Then she left, closing the door behind her with the soft finality of a period at the end of a chapter. 6 months later, Savannah stood on the steps of the Russell Senate office building, now a private consultant with a much smaller office and a much clearer conscience. The defense bill had passed with the strengthened language. Apex got its contract. Evelyn kept her corner office on K Street. They had not spoken since the night Savannah walked out. Then one crisp October evening, Evelyn appeared at Savannah's new apartment door, holding a single envelope, the safety deposit box key from Margaret's letter. "I never used the evidence," Evelyn said. "I couldn't destroy your family even when you hated me." Savannah stared at the woman she had loved in secret for 3 years, the woman who had both saved and shattered her. She took the key, then took Evelyn's hand. "Come inside," she whispered. They did not speak of forgiveness that night. They simply sat on the couch, fingers intertwined, watching the Capitol lights flicker through the window. In the quiet that followed, Savannah finally understood the irreversible truth her mother had tried to teach her. Every step forward in power costs something that can never be recovered. She had lost the congressional seat, the family approval, the illusion of control. But she had not lost Evelyn. And in the end, that was the only victory that still mattered. Was it right for Savannah to ultimately choose love over the political power she had spent her entire life chasing? Or was Evelyn's calculated betrayal the only way both of them could survive the cutthroat world they had chosen? True or false?